Hello, everybody, and welcome to our Between the Lines book talk. I guess you would call us video podcast. And this is the second of our authors couples book talk.
Yay.
We're going to talk today with fantasy and sci-fi couple Guy Donovan and Lorinda Donovan. And we're really excited and happy to have them here today because we really want to know what it's like to have two writers in the house at the same time, especially if they're not writing the same thing. Yeah. So,
Yes.
So, Michelle, is there anything else we got coming up the rest of the show? Or
Yes. Yes, I think so. In February, we're doing Pet Muses. And then I believe March, we're doing the Fantasy magazine will be here. How to set that up. They're going to give us a behind-the-scenes look. Fairies. I'm sorry, give me the name.
Secrets of the Fae.
Secrets of the Fae will be here. And we will be also chatting about having a bullying focus. Closer to April. And then in May, which will extend into June, we will kick off the book club segments. So we have a book club as well. Well, we are once a month, we'll be reading a new book and chatting about that book. So that's the next few months game plan.
Yeah.
Yay.
Yeah.
I hope everybody will also subscribe to the YouTube channel so you can see all these fabulous, talented authors, chat about their lives.
Yeah, we do a lot of laughing. I think we do more laughing than chatting.
A lot. Just a lot.
Yeah, so
it's really 30 minutes of just giggling.
Yeah. So okay, well let's talk to our authors, and we'll let them tell us a little bit about themselves and what it is they write. And in the meantime, Michelle, you think about the first question. Maybe something.
I'm thinking right now.
Okay. Yeah. So maybe
I couldn't find my question.
See if we can stump them.
Okay.
Well, there you go. Embarrass the authors.
Yeah. But okay, you guys, go ahead. Give us a little background about yourselves and what you write.
Okay, I'll start off. My name's Guy Donovan. I am currently a writer of fantasy, though I grew up a long-time lover of science fiction. I might get into that genre again someday here, but right now I'm pretty well stuck in 5th century Wales. Beside me is my wife. I will let her introduce herself.
I'm Lorinda Donovan, wife of Guy, obviously. I got into novel writing a few years back, and my first and only book right now is a sci-fi novel called Children of Earth. And I also write scripts, so I kind of have to split my time between the novel writing and the script writing. So
very cool. Well, you both work within the same genre. So how is that? Do you guys balance each other out, or do you feel, how do you handle that as far as are you more nurturing with one another, or is there any type of competition? Do you think that'll come in the future? As far as
no, there's no competition.
Competitive,
not unless you're going to surprise me. No, we bounce ideas off each other a lot. She's been writing science fiction, and between the two of us, I'm the hard science fiction fan. I'm the Arthur Clarke fan. I'm the Isaac Asimov fan. So
he's my tech advisor.
So when she gets involved in some of the techie stuff, she usually asks me for a little help with that. On characters, though, no. If anything, I'm the one asking her, "Do you think this is unbelievable?"
You're like,
kind of like each other's writing group.
Yeah.
All right. So there's no seeing each other's notes and saying, "Okay, that'll look great in my story."
No,
we're not working on this kind of stuff. So.
But I do have to credit Lori for the inspiration for the Dragon's Treasure, because she originated the concept probably a year or more before I got onto it. She had written it as a spec script for a Barbie direct-to-video, and our contact at Mattel tanked big time, and she didn't know what to do with it. She was kind of frustrated, and I suggested, well, why don't you just take the Barbie's treasure, the dragon's treasure, whatever it was at the time, and adult it up a little bit. And she had other ideas, threw it back at me and said, well, you're miserable at work, so why don't you give it a shot? So I took it and ran with it and made it 18,000 times longer. I took all the Barbie elements out. So now there's bleed over, but no, we're separate.
We're not usually working on the same stories at the same time. So.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Now, weren't you just going to start writing that story in France? Or didn't somebody suggest writing it about France and then you said no?
Oh, the original, well, I mean, the Barbie direct-to-videos are never in a particular place. They're often some magical land somewhere. But the location I had based it on was like medieval France. So that was the original setting for it.
Okay, great. Well,
I can't imagine a Barbie video with Welsh names.
No.
Barbie's Hoop the Gouda.
Not with all those double consonants and, names that are like this long.
Yeah, not to mention the beheadings and the burnings at the stake and all the rest of that. It kind of gets outside of Barbie.
No.
Poor Barbie.
Barbie drawn
Not
and
very
quartered.
Barbie.
Yeah.
That wouldn't work too well.
Oh. All right. Who's it? My turn or your turn, Michelle? I don't know.
I think it's me. Okay. What? Oh my goodness, we'll get it. What is your writing procedure? As far as how do you guys? Are you on the same schedule? Or you both have designated times? Hodgepodge, you both fit it in when you can. How do you work that?
I'll let you kick that off.
Oh well, we tend to write together
on my days off.
His days off. So we'll just go somewhere and work, and then the rest of the week I'm working myself, wherever. I have a I have a coffee shop that I go to. It's kind of like my office. So that's kind of where I go the rest.
Well, you guys already know this, but we should probably point out for the purpose of anybody watching this who doesn't know us. I work nights, and Lori's a normal human being. So Lori works during the day, and I work during the day on my weekends. And other than that, I try to catch time whenever I can. For the purpose of maintaining my employment, I'll refrain from saying when I sometimes catch that time.
We won't elaborate on that.
Luckily, in my job, nobody watches this kind of thing, so I think I'm okay.
Yeah, I don't think you have to worry about the truth.
Yeah.
Well, I know it's amazing you can juggle your work schedule and your writing schedule, especially as long-winded as you are, Guy. Oh my goodness! Whoa! Epic fantasy.
Got a lot to say.
Yeah, I have diarrhea at the fingertips. And you're looking at it after editorial.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. Well, yeah, book 3 is going to be really interesting to see. So,
it's looking like book 3 is going to turn into 3 and 4. It's just too long.
Oh.
So I think my trilogy is turning into a quadrilogy. Yeah.
Is that the proper name?
I think so. Well, it is for me.
Yeah. Oh, we're all authors here. We have the right to make up words. I do it all the time.
There you go.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yep. My editor has no clue. Oh gosh. Well, what are you inspired by? What is it? What inspired your choice of story? What inspired your sci-fi? What inspired your fantasy? Was there anything special or?
Well, for Children of Earth, it was the New Horizons mission. Actually, it started before that, though, when the whole global group of astronomers decided to demote Pluto and kick it out of the Planet Club. And I was really bummed out by that. And but then the New Horizons mission started, and when I started the book, they weren't there yet. So then, and it was in the news all last year. They had just gotten there last year.
It's less than halfway when you started, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Mm.
So.
Well, they just
So that was really what. That's what really inspired the book.
Yeah. Well, they just found a new planet out there too, didn't they? It's like, what did they say? It takes 120,000 years to circle the sun. So it's beyond Pluto.
Oh, wow.
I just caught something on news about that the other day. So that's all fascinating.
There are a whole bunch of objects out there in the Kuiper Belt that are like Dysnomia and Eris, and the other dwarf planets they call them now. There's a ton of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're only beginning to see what's really out there. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, kind of like the starship Athena that's between Jupiter. What is it? Between Jupiter and Saturn. Hey, I love all that stuff. I don't know why I write. I love sci-fi too. So, but
it's cool.
Well, I'm curious, guys. Sorry.
Go ahead. Guy has to answer.
I was curious.
You didn't answer the question.
Oh, Guy.
What are you inspired?
Was it my turn?
What inspired?
I don't know. I've always loved fantasy. It's sort of a second love, really. I fell in love with the hard sci-fi first, but then almost immediately after was when I first encountered Terry Brooks's Sword of Shannara, and thought it was fantastic. And then I stumbled into The Lord of the Rings because Ralph Bakshi's movie came out in 1978, and I thought that was great, and I wanted to find out how it ended, because that movie doesn't, of course, have an ending. Ends at the end of the Two Towers. So I got the books and I read them, and I realized that Terry Brooks completely robbed Tolkien's Lord of the Rings, and that was it for Brooks for me, and it was Tolkien. I must have spent 10 years reading every piece of fantasy I could get, looking for the next Tolkien, and was just horribly, rudely disappointed until I just went back to the sci-fi and stayed there for a while.
Well, and then you read Anne McCaffrey.
Yeah, well, that's right. Anne McCaffrey was kind of the one light in that. But I was reading it thinking it was fantasy, and only at the end did I realize it wasn't fantasy at all. The Dragon Riders of Pern is science fiction. In fact, once the entire series is read, it's actually revealed to be fairly hard science fiction. And of course, that had an enormous impact. Her dragons, with their telepathic connections with their riders, of course, had an enormous impact on my Dragon's Treasure. The telepathic contact with the one person, in my book, it's Karis, of course, and also the way in which they create flame, which is scientifically explained in a way that, because it's so scientifically feasible, I don't consider it to be stealing from the woman. They basically eat phosphine-bearing rocks that are digested in the stomach and emit flammable gases, white phosphorus, and on contact with air, white phosphorus burns. So yeah, it was a huge influence on me. So I've always been torn between fantasy and sci-fi, and I just fell into fantasy on the first series of books here.
Well,
very cool.
I think I just wanted to make a comment that I really think, though, we're crossing those two genres. I think how I write fantasy, but the backstory kind of hints to sci-fi. So I think a lot of us are starting to incorporate the two, so as we're learning more.
I think there's a lot of overlap.
Yeah.
In between fantasy and sci-fi, more than people would like to admit, I think.
Right.
For whatever reason.
If you go back to guys like Ray Bradbury, there always has been.
Yeah.
Bradbury is classified as a science fiction writer, but he himself was always, I don't write science fiction. I write more fantasy.
Yeah.
But it dealt with other planets and alien beings and whatnot, just not in a scientific way.
Well, I think the thing is that I think the distinction that has to get made is just that there's the difference between sci-fi, like the sci-fi that I write, and then the stuff like Kim Stanley Robinson,
2001, that kind
the
of thing.
really, really hard sci-fi where you really have to know, you have to be a physicist, you have to be an astronomer to even understand what they're writing about. I think that's the only difference between, where you have to make the distinction, because most writers like myself are not, we're not astronomers, we're not engineers, we're just writers, and we're just faking it.
The art school we went to and met at did not even offer anything like that, and no art school does.
So, you try to, when I wrote Children of Earth, I tried to make it as realistic as I could, but, at some point I had to admit to myself, I'm not an astrophysicist. I don't build spaceships. I don't know how to do faster than light travel and all that stuff.
And your audience wasn't that either.
Yeah, so, but you don't really have to be. But, so I think that's the only real distinction, is that, most writers are not going to be able to graduate to that level of super hard sci-fi where you really have to be a rocket scientist to understand the story. So.
I like that. You're like, we're just faking it, really, guys.
Fiction.
Really,
fiction.
We are.
We're just trying to tell a good story.
That's it.
You want to back it up with as much realism as you can, when you can. But
I like that a lot.
Otherwise, you just have to kind of wing it.
Well, I've done that a little bit in my own series with the history. I'm dealing with a specific point in history, which is the post-Roman period in Britannia. But some of my historical details I've fudged a little bit. I like to call it author license.
There you go.
I think the thing, too, especially with your story and stories that take place in that time, it's just there's so little information.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nobody knows.
Yeah.
I mean, so, nobody can really say that they really knew what was happening back then, because they weren't around, A, and B, there's no record.
And a lot of the accounts that are out there are conflicting.
Yeah, there are no records. So it really kind of frees you up, I think, to do
to lie and make it up.
Yeah.
Because as long as
fiction.
it sounds believable.
Sure. One reviewer took me to task that I end book one with a burning at the stake, and that one reviewer was just livid with his insistence that didn't happen back then. And of course, there are.
How does he know?
Exactly.
Was he there?
Well, there are all kinds of references to it's been happening since second millennia BC, for crying out loud. Since the invention of fire, people have been burning each other.
Oh no, I remember they actually had automatic machine guns back then.
Yes.
They could, have a firing squad.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The machine was far older than anyone imagined. But I mean, what it comes down to is, if that's the guy's opinion, that's the guy's opinion, and that's fine with me. But when it comes right down to it, it's fiction. And one of the main characters is a dragon that has a telepathic link with somebody and breathes white phosphorus flame.
Right.
I think there's a disconnect with reality here.
Just a small one.
Small.
It's right. It's all good.
It's a story.
Well, I have a question. Once you read, you finish the project and you're both reading one another's work, if there's if you, like the gentleman, had a challenge with something, how do you guys approach that? Basically, if you didn't like it. I was trying to be nice. You're like, in your head, oh gosh, it sucks. I'm sure that won't happen, but how do you approach that?
Well,
not that it never happens.
Well, I think it's just, because we don't tend to write the same kind of stuff, and our writing styles are very different.
Right.
We actually come across, things that, we kind of go, but I think the point is just to be constructive about it.
Right.
Just to just say, oh, well, maybe this would sound better, or, maybe you want to try to do it this way, or, see how you like it, that kind of thing. You don't want to change somebody else's writing style,
right.
Just fit what you like, so you just, but obviously you're not going to like everything that they do. do. He's not going to like everything that I write. I'm not going to like everything that he writes. So it's just, but you try to be constructive about it, you know.
I was just curious because I know how it is when you get those feedback from outside reviews like the gentleman you mentioned, but I didn't know if it was a little bit tougher when, you know, there's a husband and wife team. So, you know, because
there's no denying it. It can get a little prickly because, I mean, she's got her ego. I've got my ego like anybody else. And nobody with an ego likes to.
Yes.
Well, I don't know how well that works, but
yeah, I know. I don't like it.
My original ending for The Dragon's Treasure was going to be much more of a downer than it's actually been written. And it's still a pretty bittersweet ending, but Lori gave me some really great ideas that got to percolating in my head. And it took a few days of really thinking about it, but eventually it sunk in through the granite that my skull is made of that, yeah, I gotta give it at least a little bit of sweet to the bitter.
Oh, that's cool.
So, yeah, sometimes you don't want to hear it, but sometimes it's what you need to hear.
Yeah.
Very cool.
And Guy, too, especially in writing Children of Earth, I had to rely on Guy a lot.
The science, the dreaded science.
For the fact checking, you know. And of course you come across some things that just realistically aren't going to work with what you want to do because it's just not possible. Especially when the story got into the later part where you start to get into more of the mystical and it's moving away from what is known and what is understood,
which is the easier stuff to write,
into more of what we would call mystical or just science that we don't understand yet, so it was kind of hard, but I got through it, and I just kind of tried to balance, trying to make it sound realistic and not completely lose the story, and trying to just hold to realism.
Well, you had a metaphysical thread running through the entire thing. And then you kind of encapsulated that with this hard science that eventually towards the end became less important than the metaphysics.
Right.
Oh. See?
There you go.
You heard it here.
Yes.
Well, I don't know. After what we just heard, I don't know. Would you guys ever be able to collaborate on anything? Are you just too different?
I'm sure we could, but I think we just have very different ideas of what we want to do right now.
That and our basic writing style is so different that
it would be hard to pick a style to.
Yeah. Some teams collaborate well, like in the hard science fiction, and there's Niven and Purnell and a few other people, and it's because they already had a similar writing style, even if one was more into the metaphysics than the science. That can balance, but when you're dealing with a basic writing style, it's different. Like ours tend to disagree. I don't know. I think we're better off bouncing each other's ideas off our heads.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
I mean, we could probably do it, but it would be hard.
Yeah.
And like I said, we just have very different ideas of what we want to work on right now. So.
Mm-hmm.
But that helps. That differences also balances it out. I would think the other couple, it was the same. There was a difference, but their strengths balanced one another. My husband isn't writing formally right now, but he has a clear vision. So he'll read over or he'll look at maybe an image, for a cover or whatever, and give his honest opinion. I'm going to be honest. At first, I was like, ouch.
Don't have to be that honest.
No. But now I look for his opinion because I know if it gets past him, it's good. Mm-hmm. So I think that balances one another out, and I think that's great. Is it me, Denise? Oh, okay. I do have a question. What is one of the favorite scenes out of Lorinda's books? Lorinda's book that you really enjoy, and why? And then vice versa.
So my favorite of hers and her favorite of mine.
Yes.
In Children of Earth, there's a few. I anticipated this, and I got to pick one of.
Try not to spoil.
Yeah. That's
no
another thing. I don't want to spoil anything. There's a sequence. There's a very technical docking sequence in Children of Earth. It's maybe about third to half of the way through, and it's written with a lot of technical jargon, and it's very precise because it's orbital mechanics, like actually going to the International Space Station, and it's written in that way. But there's also a joke being played through it, and the balance of those two, that really really technical, sweating out making the docking, and yet there being this joke played on somebody at the same time. I'd have to call that one as being my favorite right off the top of my head.
Very cool. I like that. Lorinda?
Oh, wow. Well, there's so much to pick from. I mean, you know what I'm talking about. It's just...
Yes.
And which book?
Well, I think...
Pardon me.
Just all the way through the first book, what really kind of touched me about the Dragon's Treasure, and through the whole series, but I think especially in the first book, because Karis is still, she's not clear-headed yet. You know, she hasn't had her kind of therapy with the dragon that helps her clear her head. So, and it was just that, and I didn't know this at the time, but he partially based it on my brother, because my brother was special needs, and a lot of what Karis does as part of those habits are things that he did. So it's very real. You know, it's very much like, well, yeah, this is what somebody does who really has these developmental and mental problems. So that really kind of, like the whole part where she would bite her hand, you know, to stop the headaches, that was something that he used to do. And, you know, it was just like, I just thought that was really cool. So.
Very awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool. Love that.
Well, you know, you guys, a lot of times when I have a writing block, you know, it's like I just can't write. And for some stupid reason, I'll pick up a book and I'll read somebody else's words, or I'll sit down and flick through the television, and I'm always looking for something fantasy, you know, and it'll always jog something that I need to finish that chapter or go on to the next scene. It's not that I'm stealing, you know, what I'm seeing,
Right.
But for you guys, is there anything that, you know, you do that helps to jog? Do you have your little favorite TV shows, or do you have other favorite authors that you like to, you know, I'm sure Guy is probably really loving and watching the Shannara Chronicles right now.
Actually, I haven't watched it. I haven't seen it.
More of a Game of Thrones kind of guy.
Yeah, I'm waiting for season 6 Game of Thrones right now.
Oh.
Yeah.
I love Game of Thrones. Walking Dead.
For myself, I don't usually really get a lot of writer's block. I mean, I get slowdowns like anybody else will. It never really feels like a block to me. It's just I haven't really thought it through in my head enough to figure out the path that I'm going to go. And that's another difference between Lori and I, is that Lori is a pantser and I am not quite an outliner, but I do really plan things out a little bit more. I leave myself a lot of wiggle room, though. But a lot of the time, I just haven't figured out the avenue that I'm going to get to that next place that I want my story to get to. I know where it's going. I just don't know what route it's going to take. And more often than not, when I've gotten into those points where I'm kind of hung up, either something that is completely non-genre, watching TV, watching Person of Interest or something else like that, something will strike me. And it'll click, and it's hard to pick out what it is, but something will do it, or just something that I observe in the day-to-day world. I'll keep this very short because I know we're running up on the end here. But one day I was just really stuck for how to get Karis somewhere, and I happened to look out the window of the vehicle I was in, and I saw some grouse in a snowbank leaping up to try to get something hanging off the bottom branch of a really low-hanging tree. And there's like 10 or 12 of them, and it really just tickled me to see these fat birds jumping up and falling down and rolling back down the snowbank. And it just occurred to me, she's out in the wild, that's what she sees, and boom, I was off and running. So it's hard to say what really does it, but it's usually something that's not fantasy at all. What about you?
Yeah, I've had times where I get stuck, and it just feels like nothing's coming. A lot of times I'll just, because I spend so much time writing screenplays too, a lot of times I'll just go to the movies. I'll just go see something. And it doesn't matter what, but a lot of times that will just watching some other story will help me to figure it out.
Definitely. Netflix is my friend, and I get a lot of ideas from like originals and all of that. So yeah. What would be something that your readers would be surprised to know about you, just for fun?
I can't ride a bike.
I don't know how to ride.
I don't think I can anymore either.
That's the only thing I can think of. I don't have my ears pierced.
Ah, there you go.
Oh, there you go.
I
Guys?
was too afraid to get my ears pierced, but I eventually was able to.
Yeah, you're scared of a needle in the ear, but not in the arm.
The conundrum that is me. Yes.
The conundrum. How about you, Guy?
Oh, I don't know. I would say I can't dance, but I mean, look at me. Of course I can't dance. How's this? I spoke with a lisp until I was 8.
Oh.
Had to have therapy.
Wow.
I don't lisp.
Wow.
Is that a dental thing you have to do?
No, it was just a lazy thing.
Oh, was it?
It was a lazy thing.
Okay. See, I didn't know that either.
See? Hey.
This is what this show is about. The real deals.
Yeah.
Now everybody's tired. Every time somebody sees you, they're going to think that a lot. All right. Sorry, Denise. There you go.
Oh, well, speaking of lisp, I think I wrote one of my characters in Candlelight and Cobwebs. Yeah, he spoke with a lisp, but it was only after he fell through the floor and bit his tongue. So.
Well, that would do it.
That would do it.
Yeah, did it. So anyways, well, I guess we're running a little short on time here. So just wanted to say thank you to you guys for coming and joining us.
Yeah, I got your lisping.
I know.
I heard it.
All right, Michelle, will you finish?
All right. Well, Guy and Lorinda, thank you so much for joining us today. Where can everyone touch base with you or grab copies of your books?
Amazon. And I have a Facebook page for Children of Earth that you can link to through the page on Amazon. So
Very cool.
I guess the same for Guy.
Yeah, same here. Just my Amazon author page and Goodreads, I guess, as well, which is part of Amazon now. And yeah, the Facebook page for The Dragon's Treasure.
Very, very cool. Well, everyone that is watching, thank you so much for hanging out with us. Denise.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah. And we just hope we'll hope that you all will come by and visit us on Between the Lines Book Chat. Had to think about it on Facebook. Drop a message. We love the chat, and we will see you next time.
And don't forget to subscribe. There I go, lisping again.
Don't forget to subscribe. That's our YouTube channel.
Oh, that's not
yes.
All right. Okay.